Welcome to What's Your Spark podcast with me, Hono Yanas. At What's Your Spark, we explore the journeys of people who found their thing. That could be a passion or a business that fuels them, gives their life purpose, and simply brings them joy. I truly believe in the power of storytelling. So let's dive into this episode's story. Good morning, Tina.
Hello.
Tina, for those who might not know you, would you mind just to tell a bit about yourself, what you do, who you are?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tina. I am a local Sydney-sider, Northern Beaches, born and bred, have lived here my whole life on the beaches. And I am currently running a photography business in sort of lifestyle and family photography, something sort of I've picked up over the last couple of years. I have a background in marketing, communications and graphic design. So I think photography for me kind of eventually came natural when I finally decided to make the switch. But other than that, I'm a busy mum. I have two young kids, a 7 and 9-year-old, soon to be 10-year-old, and have a little fur child, Ruby, little cavoodle, who's definitely the love of my life. She's my little best buddy.
You mentioned you moved from like marketing and design towards photography. So could you tell us a bit more about the journeys? What actually inspired you to quit your 9-to-5 marketing career and start working as a photographer?
So for me, it kind of came about during COVID, and I spent quite a bit of time during sort of 2020 to end of 2022, even into 2023, just sort of in and out of work. I couldn't find the right thing. I couldn't find the right sort of cultural fit with an organisation, and something for me just wasn't ticking my boxes anymore in terms of working in that corporate 9-to-5 space. And I think I was just sort of pushing something that was never really in me anyway. And then sort of during the lockdown period, I decided to go out and buy a new camera. And with that just came, just doing it as a hobby with my family and my kids, and during that lockdown period where there was really nothing else to do. So, yeah, being in between work and just sort of trying to find something that was for me, that was a creative outlet that gave me a bit more purpose in what I was doing and gave me something to do, I guess, other than just looking after the kids all the time and just being in and out of that work headspace. So that's kind of how it came about. And then from there, it's just kind of organically grown. So, and I think having that graphic design background as well. So I actually bought my first camera, 15 plus years ago because I was working in design and I needed it specifically for a job that I was doing. So it's kind of always been there. And I think for me, it was just a case of, getting back on the bike, so to speak, and figuring it out and learning again and seeing where it would take me. But originally it was 100% just for a hobby. And it's an interesting hobby to be in because it's not a cheap hobby. It's quite expensive with all the equipment. But yeah, it just kind of organically grew from there.
So how long did it take you? Like, when was the moment when you were like, oh, okay, actually, this is something I can do for a living?
Yeah, I think I ended up coming out of a role, when was it? January 2023, was it? January 2023? Yes. January 2023, came out of a role, and I think for me that was it. I was like, I'm just done with jumping in and out of jobs and not being able to find the right thing. And I was like, that's it. I'm just going to give it a go. I'm going to do this full time and sort of see what happens. And even throughout that period of making that decision consciously and trying to make it work, you have your ups and downs and your ebbs and flows. So yeah, for me, I think it was more about making it work as opposed to wondering. I just kind of decided to commit and give it a go because clearly the 9-to-5 thing wasn't working for me. And I had just had enough of trying to find the right thing and being in that space. And I think that's sort of more damaging for your mental health than it is to actually commit and give something a go that you love wholeheartedly. So yeah, it's been sort of a year, just over a year of doing it solo without even really thinking about, I'll just go and find another job or whatever. Like, I've committed myself to making this work. And yeah, that's kind of was it for me. It was the last straw, just sort of coming out of another role and being like, nah, I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep jumping jobs. So I'm going to make it work.
And just like that, I'm going to make it work.
Yep.
It sounds so easy.
A couple of years in the making, though. So I'd gone through sort of 2020 through to 2023 in that headspace of, being in roles that don't resonate with me as a person or don't add value to my life or my values or my morals or anything like that. So I spent that time just wondering what if. Okay, well, what if I did this full time? What if I quit my job? Like, what's it going to look like? But I think, you know, having the support that I have with my husband and my family and you know, close friends, I think having people in your corner makes that transition much, much easier. But yeah, definitely been a journey. It's been a process. I've had lots of times where I've doubted myself, doubted my skill set, doubted whether I can make it work or not. But yeah, I think just being able to back yourself and just, you've got to get through it. You've got to get through the lows and commit, because if you don't commit 100%, you'll never know, right? So
So what helps you during those times when you are like, oh my God, you know, is that it? Or like, should I, like, how do you stay commitment to yourself? Because I think that's
it's
the
hard.
most difficult commitment we do, you know? It's so easy to give up on us.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, going back to the mindset of, oh yeah, I'll just get a job. I'll go back to 9 to 5 because you think it's easier and more convenient, and in fact is not, because it's making you miserable or unhappy, or for whatever reason that doesn't connect with who you are anymore, right? So I think for me during those lows, I ended up allowing myself to have the low, right? Allow yourself to sit in the low. It's okay. You know, what's the worst that can happen in that situation when you're sitting in that low? And eventually you come back out of it and you pick yourself back up and you're almost stronger than you were before that. So last year, for example, you know, even this time of year now, May, June, July tends to be the quiet period. Whereas last year when I first was doing this for the first year, I had no idea. I just kind of was so busy from January to April, May. I wasn't expecting sort of the low season to come in, whereas now I'm a bit more prepared. So it's just sort of having the experience and allowing yourself to go through it and giving yourself the downtime. Like, okay, it's quiet. Can I make this work? Can I not make this work? What am I going to do? How am I going to make it work? And it forces you to think differently about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis. And it could be small things like just setting yourself a winter goal for when you know, things might be a bit quieter, or, you know, just setting goals for when things are quiet. What are you going to do to help pick up your business? So that's probably been, for me, the biggest thing, just allowing myself to sit in that and think about it and slow things down and sort of come back out of it stronger. But then the other thing would definitely be supporting, you know, having supportive people around you, people in your corner who back you and pick you up when you're in that low. So for me, obviously, my husband's a great support. He's always been an amazing emotional support for me. And then on top of that, I've always surrounded myself by local photographers as well, who are doing the same thing, who are ultimately my competition, but yet they've been there, they've done that, they understand how it feels to be in that low and, you know, what is required to pick yourself back up.
Is it anything else that help you to go through this process? Like you mentioned the goal setting. So do you use any methodology for that?
Yeah, I'm a massive list writer. I'm old school. I like to write myself a nice big list and give myself a real realistic time frame to achieve it. So it could be as simple things as like, you know, by the end of next month, I want to make sure that I've updated my website, or by the end of next month, I want to make sure I've reached out to, you know, 20 new clients, or, you know, whatever that might look like. And for me, it's literally a case of just ticking off the boxes as I go along. On top of that, I think it's really important to make sure that you're getting yourself out there as well and doing other things that feed your soul. So for me, exercise, going for a walk, you know, because when you're working on your own business on a day-to-day basis and sometimes you're putting in so much effort and so much time and you're not getting the traction you want, it becomes a bit of a chore. And for me, I think that was a massive challenge, was trying to establish whether this was a hobby or was something I can actually make a living out of. And often when you start making that transition, that gets blurred, you know, so because you're so focused on trying to make it work as a business and the finances involved in it and making sure that you can actually pay the bills at the end of the month, that, you know, you don't want to lose the passion that ignited it in the first place. So I think just being realistic in that sense, and yeah, just sometimes it's okay to take a break from the business that is taking, you know, every bit of part of your soul and your mind and your time and all the things, because you do end up putting in so much effort into your own business, more so than you do when you're working in that 9 to 5 space. So yeah, I think allowing yourself to have the time, set goals, realistic time frames, and then, you know, have something else that can take you away from that when it starts to get a bit too stressful.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think especially when you keep doing things and you don't see the results. Let's go back to when you decided, okay, I'm going to give it a go. I want to try to do photography full time. Did you have any plan in place? Like, did you let down and were like, okay, I'm giving myself 6 months or like whatever investment I need, or okay, I need a new camera, I need a new lens, did anything at all? Or it was more like, okay, I'm done. Let's do it.
Completely just organic, and I just went with it, to be honest. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have in 6 months' time, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go back to work. It was purely, no, like I have to make this work. This has to work because I'm not going back to that 9 to 5 working for someone. And it's amazing once you come out of it and you realize you can make money for yourself. You realize you can actually do it. I mean, yeah, right now it's not the same as having a full-time wage, and there's sacrifices you have to make, right, along the way. But I could not imagine now at this point going and working for someone. It's just not, it's not an option for me at this point, especially now being nearly a year and a half in. I'm like, no, like I've gotten this far, and businesses and these things take time, right? So you've got to allow yourself to have the time. And if you don't, like, I don't think 6 months is enough. I don't think people going into a business saying, look, I'm going to do this for 6 months and see what happens. I mean, unless you're really under a lot of financial stress and you need the finances, might be different. But yeah, I think you need to commit, and you need to give yourself a good couple of years in my mindset. But, everybody's in different situations. I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough that I've been able to do it. But yeah, I mean, otherwise it's small steps, right? It's picking it up as a hobby whilst you're working full time. And then eventually that full-time job might turn into a part-time job because you've built up that side business enough, to keep you going. And then eventually you quit your job and you take that on full time. Whereas because I think I was in and out of work for so long, I just went, no, I'm done. I'm finished. I can't do it anymore. But, the other option is to take the small steps and do it that way, I guess. And I think if I were in a different position, I probably would have done that as well.
Yeah, just try to doing on a side hustle.
And there's so many people in the same boat that are doing that. They've got the side hustle, it's the hobby, they love it, they're passionate about it, but it's just not where they need to be. The only downside with that is that unless you 100% commit to that business, it just takes so much longer. It takes so much longer. Like, had I just committed to this at the beginning of COVID, when it all sort of started kicking off, where I would be now, nearly 4 years in, would be so different to where I actually am. So it's a catch, but you've got to do what's right for you, I think, and only you really know the answers to that. And I think as long as you have the support network in place, financially, emotionally, all the things to help you push forward, it can be quite challenging and a bit time consuming. It just takes you longer to get to that end point.
What does this commitment means to you? Because even if I think about myself, and I really like what you say, 6 months is not enough. And I'm like, yeah, right. Sometimes we feel like we just want to see results here now. Yes. Because you made a decision, you're working, but obviously it takes time. Like, as you said, even for you, it's different seasons. Yeah. So what does this commitment means to you?
How do I see it? It's a good question. I think it's just, like I said, you've got to allow yourself to kind of sit in those lows. Like, I've had heaps of moments where I've panicked, right? And gone, oh my God, this isn't working. I haven't got a client booked in for the next 3 weeks. What am I going to do? And funnily enough, now that I'm on this side of it, it's kind of like everything always works itself out. And you've got to kind of experience those lows to figure out what you're going to do to pull yourself out. So for example, this winter, I'm working on a home studio space because I know it's going to be quiet and I know I'm going to need to up my game next year. So what am I going to do? How am I going to make that work? So I'm literally turning this room that I'm sitting into now into a small studio space. So that's going to be my winter project. It's going to get me through winter. And then hopefully, when it picks up again come spring, I'll have more to offer clients. So, and you don't know what that looks like until you've really done a solid 12 months in doing your own thing and trying to figure it out. And a lot of the times it's ups and downs, right? So the fear of failure for me, I think, was a big one. And I think that's what pushed me out from doing this for so long, is that I was so scared to fail until I realized that there's nothing wrong with failing. And there's not one business or, small business owner, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, who has not failed in their life in building their business. So the only way to move forward is to experience that, allow yourself to sit in it and move forward. And I think that's probably been my biggest learning curve over the last 12 months plus is just being okay with that. And a lot of people don't like it. They don't want to sit in that space because it's a yucky space. It doesn't feel good. But the only way to grow, even as a person on an individual level, like my personal growth over the last year has been phenomenal. You've got to sit in it. You've got to come back out of it. But like I said, make sure you've got the support system in place so that you can come out of it and you can come out of it stronger rather than weaker. Yeah, and the whole 6-month thing's just not enough. It's just not enough time. You've got to give yourself the time. I think, what's the stat? I think most businesses, they need the first 5 years potentially fail in that first 5 years. But when you look at where I'm at, I'm a year and a half in nearly, and it's, I'm not failing. I'm doing quite well. So you've got to give yourself the time and just see where it takes you. And it opens up other doors. The more people you meet and the more that you can network, I think is probably key as well, because you meet some amazing people on the journey as well.
You mentioned the support system. So obviously the friends, family, that's what we have or should have.
Yep.
But then you said about different photographers. So how did you do that? Did you just reach out to them, or how do you build this kind of community and this support system of people that actually have the same challenges, the same struggles, but wins also as you do?
Yeah, I think, there's heaps of community pages like on Facebook and Instagram and things like that you can become a part of. And that's across any industry. So I don't know, I just kind of started searching for local photographers on Instagram. I just start stalking local photographers and finding them and following them, and then they follow you back. And before you know it, you're seeing what they're doing and you're chatting. And yeah, there's a few local ones that I'm aware of, but you just have to get yourself out there and find them. There's, global ones even, right, on Facebook. I know I'm a part of a real estate photographer group for real estate photography, which is not even really one of my specialties, but it's something I certainly do. And I can't tell you how many times I've just popped a post up in there about a job that I've done and, asking for feedback. And before you know it, you guys are all friends on Facebook or Instagram and you're following each other. And that's just kind of how you build it up. But you've got to go searching for it. You've got to find it. Some of the local community pages are really good too. So Northern Beaches Mums, that Facebook page for me is amazing. So I'm registered as a business with them. That's been probably one of my biggest ways to advertise. Otherwise, I don't really do a lot. It's all word of mouth. But yeah, finding those local community pages just across social media will be, enough of a kickstart, I think, for anybody wanting to start a business in that space. Even if you're doing a trade, there's Northern Beaches tradies groups and things like that as well. So there's lots of options, but you just need to find them pretty much.
Did you know from the beginning that you want to do mostly, because it's not only but families photo shoots?
Not really, no. I had no idea, to be honest. I did not have a specific area of photography that I wanted to work in. I think the families just gravitated towards me. I think that that just happened on its own. Maternity and newborn I absolutely love, and I certainly don't do enough of them. I would love to do more of them. But then the other side is commercial. So commercial is much more lucrative in terms of consistency. Like, you find a couple of local businesses to work with in this space and they'll keep you on their books for years. So whereas, you do a shoot for a family and you might not see them again for another couple of years, you know what I mean? So it kind of depends on what you want to do and what, how you want to do things in this space, particularly if you're going to work in a creative space. It's a very freelance world as well. So like, again, the ups and downs. So last week I had 5 gigs on. This week I've got 2, so every week is a little bit different. You've got to be prepared for that. But yeah, no, I had no idea really, to be honest, at the beginning, what and how and, what areas I was going to specialize in. And I think the other thing for me in this space was saying yes to everything, even things that I didn't think I'd be able to achieve. Like, I did an event last year and I had never done an event before in my life. And initially I had knocked it back and said, no, I don't want to do it. No, events, they scare me. I don't want to do it. No. Before I knew it, I went, I did it. It was great. I loved it. Now I'm quite keen to do events. You know what I mean? So whatever comes my way, I think I'm happy to give it a go. And I tend to quote accordingly. Like, if I don't feel like I have a specific strength or a skill set in one area of photography, I might quote a little bit under. But you're just sort of adjusting things as you go along, and just say yes to everything. You say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. You network, you meet people, you chat. And I think just having that ownership of what you do is really important as well, because you're never going to expand again unless you're sort of happy to back yourself as well in that space of whatever it is that you do. It could be anything.
And the flexibility as well, as you say, trying out new things, but also being flexible. That's amazing that you actually tried this event. And let's see.
Too, but I had a friend actually that I was talking to her about, and they were pushing me to do it. Like, you should do it. Just do it. Give it a go. You don't know. And she was right. I did it, gave it a go, loved it, was like, I want to do this again. How do I get more events like this? You know what I mean? So, the commercial space is interesting in that, it can be sort of a better way to work, I think, in photography, but I resonate probably more from a morals and values perspective in sort of the family and lifestyle space as well. So, say yes to everything. That's my advice.
That's the thing, because now you have like two things, like your passion for photography, but then also you're like the CEO of your business, right? You're the owner. So you need to know about like, okay, there needs to be an income, there needs to be a cash flow. Yes. And as you say, those are two hats that you're wearing as well. So you need to plan it out. Like, I prefer that, but also you need to think about perhaps long-term cooperations, or as you said, if it's more commercial cooperation, it's a long-term, it's recurring, and it's more sustainable for a business.
100%. So that's another thing, like when you're going through your ebbs and flows, and I now know I'm coming into that sort of slower season. How can I find more commercial clients? How can I pick up more sort of corporate clients in that space and, work that over the quieter season where the jobs are a bit more consistent? So, families that don't want to go to the beach in the middle of winter and really get a photo taken and have a family photo session. So, it's definitely wearing different hats, being flexible, and being able to adapt whatever it is that you're doing to any situation. And I think that's probably, I think that can be used across pretty much any business, right? Because I'm sure most businesses aren't overflowing with work all year round. So you just need to be able to find a way to navigate those slow periods, I guess, and keep yourself going.
Yeah, and that's come with the time that you mentioned. So you need to see.
For 6 months, it's not enough. It's not enough. You've got to give yourself a solid 12 months. I don't think that even relates to, like, when I look back into my corporate life in 9 to 5, like, unless you've done 12 months in a role, you really don't understand the whole process of how things work. So, I don't see this any different. If you're going to start your own business, you need to figure out what's going to happen over a year's period, and then you can plan, prepare better for it the year after. And again, the year after that and the year after that. And before you know it, you've been doing it for 3-4 years and you're like, oh, you know what? I can actually make this work. So,
100%. And do you think right now about like a financial year or just January to December?
Because I started in January of last year, I'm working January to December, but it's only been sort of this year where I'm like, oh, okay, now I kind of need to turn that into a financial year calendar and see what that looks like, which probably doesn't work to my favor in this space because my peak seasons is sort of summer and spring. And so now I'll be working winter to winter. So I don't really know how that
that's weird. That's weird about the financial year in Australia. Like in Europe, it's January to December in most of the countries.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, how do you work around that? Back to photography, because that's your expertise right now. It's what you're working with. If someone would like to start in that field, what would you recommend to do?
I think you just need to go out. So get yourself a camera. Buy yourself a good camera. You can get a decent camera body and lens for a reasonable price, and you just start shooting. There's so many online courses that you can find to do as well. And like I said, just start building your community. Start finding people who do the same sort of thing. Reach out to them, talk to them. I found most of the people in this space across the Northern Beaches have been more than willing, to share information and to, network with each other and bounce off each other in terms of ideas and creative workshops and things like that. So I think, you just got to get started. Pick up the camera, get going, figure it out. YouTube is a great source of tutorials, online tutorials for you. You don't have to spend an absolute fortune on getting started. I think the most important thing is grabbing the equipment that you need, probably starting up your social media profiles as soon as possible, because you can start that with, just whatever that photos you're taking of your kids or landscapes or, whatever it might be. You can start that straight away. And, just network your way to the top, because I think one of my biggest things that I should have done earlier was probably not admitting what I did for work. Like, what do you do for work? Oh, well, I just kind of dabble in photography. Like, no, this is what I do. This is my business. I'm a lifestyle and family photographer. And being able to be comfortable in that space in admitting to what I do, because it's such a subjective space to work in as well. Everyone's got an opinion. They'll jump onto your social media profiles and start looking like, oh, I'm not sure, So I think that level of criticism when you're working in a creative space can set you back a bit. But you need to be able to own it, really. You need to be able to back yourself and own it. And, no one's going to figure out what you do if you don't tell them what you do, So that's probably the biggest thing as well. I think just being open to everybody that you meet when they ask you a question on what do you do or what do you enjoy doing. Yeah, I love photography. This is what I do. Or it could be anything. I love to paint. I'm an artist. I love to create, X, Y, and Z. So, yeah.
So when was the time for you when you were like, okay, I'm a photographer?
Oh, that's a trick. It's only been probably the last 6+ months. Like, even when I started out at the beginning of last year, I kept it very down low. And it goes back to that whole concept of the fear of failing. I'm like, well, what if people know that this is what I'm doing and it's not doing very well? People are going to think I'm a failure, but you know what? Who cares? Who cares if people think you're a failure? Who cares if people don't like what you're doing? If it serves you purpose and it's giving you the things that you need at that point in time in your life, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And I think for me, it took me a while to jump over that hurdle. I think that was a big emotional hurdle for me. But yeah, like, I'm much more comfortable with it now, sitting in that space and knowing that I can make it happen and I can make it work. And not everything that I do is a work of art, you know what I mean? Not every shot that I take is a masterpiece, but, it's something that I love. My clients are happy. I'm happy. It works with my family. It works with my kids. My kids actually love what I do. My daughter loves it. She's always a willing participant, a willing model to, if I want to try something new. So I think once you start seeing those results and you kind of, the focus is more on that onus, the happiness and the passion and the love, the rest of it just kind of falls into place on its own. So, yeah. Does that make sense?
I think I really needed to hear that. Thank you so much.
Well, it's not. People don't like to admit it, right? People don't like to sit here and have a conversation around failing and what that looks like and the fear of that. It's petrifying. And I think that's why so many people just end up going back to the 9 to 5 or whatever it is. If it's not a financial reason, it's because they're scared to fail. And it's okay to fail. And it doesn't matter what other people think. You've got to do what's right for you, what resonates with you as a person and your goals, and you keep going. And when the times are yuck, you sit in it. That's okay. And you pick yourself back up and you surround yourself with those people who are going to pick you back up and push you on your merry way.
Yeah, you talk a lot about those people. I think you have an amazing support system.
I'm very, very lucky. I do. I have an incredible support system, and I've been fortunate enough to have that. And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have the support. But you can find it. You just got to look for it.
Yeah, just gonna put yourself out there.
Yeah,
that's so important, because it's so easy to doubt yourself. And as you say, like, especially at the beginning, you try things, there's nothing happening, or like you've got a client or two and there's nothing then for a few weeks. And it's so easy to start going on a whatever website to look for a new job. And it's like, okay, maybe it's better. I'm going to do it as a side hustle and then I'm going to go back. But is it really going to work? Yeah, I caught myself that thinking too,
And it doesn't work. It doesn't work, to be honest. And I only know that because I've done it now. You know what I mean? And I'm on the other end of it. And look, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I jump onto Seek and I just have a little browse, and I can confidently say there is not one job on Seek at the moment across Sydney that I would apply for. I'm like, nah, that doesn't do it for me. So, yeah, you've just got to give yourself the time and get through it.
I love it. I love it just to go there to check it out and to be like, no.
I'm like, I'll just have a browse. And then I realize, nah, not for me.
I love it. I know that's the way to do that, right? Just to go and see what they offer, what's even a while, like this 1 or 2 pages can tell you so much. Like you feel like inside is like, don't go that way.
No, you just don't even go there. And it's, it kind of makes you feel, sometimes I still doubt myself sometimes. I'd be lying if I sat here and said I didn't doubt myself sometimes. It's probably why I have a little browse. But it also reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because I'm like, you feel like you're missing out. Or like, maybe there is that dream job out there that's the corporate 9 to 5 that's going to, offer me all the things I want. And you go and you have a look and you're like, no, it's not there. It's still not there. Years later.
maybe in a month.
Maybe next month. Probably not. But what do? You have a look.
You mentioned what you do when you lack motivation, but what are the things that actually sparks your creativity and enthusiasm, the things that makes you feel this, oh my God, this is it?
Yeah, I think it's funny, when I first started doing this and I first started picking up clients, and it only took me a couple of months to sort of find paying clients, which is surprising. I'm like, here we go. I've got someone actually wants to pay me for what I do. That's great. I used to get really nervous. I would get so nervous, and it wasn't until the session would kick off, everyone's having a great laugh, and you've connected with new people on a different level that you would not have normally done. By the end of the session, it's just joyful. You know what I mean? Like it's for me, it's happiness. I've met new people, I've made a connection with them, and I'm going to produce something for them that they're going to love and keep for the rest of their lives. And I think for me, that's probably what it is. That's what keeps me going. That's why I love what I do, because I'm able to provide people with something that is tangible and, brings them joy. And for me, it was about, leaving that 9 to 5 and finding something that was purposeful. So that's probably what it is. And then I think in this space as well, whilst it's so subjective being creative, you do get instant recognition and you get instant results, right? So I might finish a gallery, send it off, and the first thing I get back from that client is, oh my God, I love these. These are incredible. And that's what it is right there. Ping, there you go. And you got your little high, and then you just kind of keep going up and up and up. So yeah, that's probably what it is that keeps me going in this space.
You mentioned a nice thing. Oh, someone wants to pay me.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How did you approach that in the creative sector? I mean, photography, it is tangible in a way.
Yes.
But how did you come up with those pricing? Was it easy for you, or did you find it like, oh my God, how can I price my services?
Yeah, pricing in this space is quite tricky because it can be very expensive for a family to go and have a family session, right? And there's photographers out there who charge a lot for their services, and rightfully so. They've got the experience, their work is incredible, rightfully so, right? But particularly off the back of COVID, we've got cost of living crisis, all sorts of things. It's not, what's the word? It's a luxury for families in this space to be, going out and paying for a family session like this. So for me, initially, I did a lot of free work. I found a lot of models and a lot of families who were willing for me to use them as part of my portfolio. And I started off that way. So, and I think in a lot of creative spaces, you're doing a lot of work for free initially because you're building relationships, you're getting your name out there, you're building a portfolio, because ultimately that's how people are going to, they're going to look at your work. They're either going to love it and go, yes, I love that. That's my style. That's what I want, or they're not. So that's probably key initially when you're starting out in sort of a creative space. And then from there, you base your pricing off your level of experience and where you want to place yourself as well, I think, and, have flexibility where you need to. So for me, I'll have my basic few packages that I work on, and for, people who might need something different, I'll customize that. So you got to have the flexibility to work with, I think, a lot of different budgets in mind, and yeah, you just kind of go from there. But I think when you're just starting out, you need to be realistic and just see what happens. And year on year, you just, have that slowly increasing price range that you want to work with. And, don't be ashamed of what you're charging, basically. Don't sell yourself short. Don't charge peanuts, because that's not right. You just got to charge what you think you're worth. And, if I was a client, what would I be willing to pay myself? to do something like that. So that's kind of how I've based pricing. And I have no doubt that will continue to change. You've kind of got to see what's out there as well and what competitors are doing in that space and what are they charging and what can you offer? What's your point of difference? How is an experience with you different to an experience with somebody else? And then sort of tailor it from there, I think. So I think for me, my main thing is value for money, because I can kind of see where that sits, particularly for families. If I'm going to keep pushing down that family space, like they want something that's affordable. And a lot of these photographers are charging top dollar and you come out with 3 photos, So that's just, for me, that doesn't make sense to me. I wouldn't pay for that. I wouldn't go and pay a photographer $500, $600, $700, whatever it is, for 2 or 3 photos or 5 photos. So for me, I'm more about value for money. And I think that's how I've differentiated myself across quite a few of the competitors. But then again, there's always someone who's willing to do it for cheaper. There's always someone who's willing to do an hour session for like $100 and here's a full gallery of images. So yeah, you've got to kind of weigh up where you want to be, how you want to place yourself, and just see what happens. People are going to resonate with you as a person, I think, more so than what the financial side of it is. So that's what I've found anyway of the last year and a half nearly.
So with the like a free sessions to build your portfolio,
yes.
Did you know when to say, okay, enough, I've got enough?
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, I still do them sometimes. I'll still, if I want to get really creative and do something really different, because I'm in a period at the moment where I'm trying to push my style into a bit more of a niche area. So I need to find clients who are willing to do that. And a lot of the time they're not, you know what I mean? You'll find clients who just don't feel comfortable in front of the camera. So you've got to make them feel comfortable, right? And then, whereas if you're kind of finding a model who's going to be doing it for free and you're gifting them an entire session plus X amount of images, the clause is basically that, I've got full creative direction in terms of what we do and you're okay with that, and you'll only attract the models that are willing to do it anyway. So that's kind of fine. But yeah, you don't need a lot. I don't really feel like you need a lot. And just, you got to keep doing that sort of every 6 months, sort of put out a model call and just try and get people in, just so you can keep showcasing what your skills are and pushing your skills. Because I find like that's the only space that you can kind of do it, when you've got yourself a model who's willing to do whatever it is, and you can push yourself creatively in that space as well.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah, it is actually. It's a lot of fun just having somebody who's willing to, whatever, you tell me what to do and I'll do it, and then off you go. And it's good fun.
Yeah,
trying. One model who has not enjoyed their experience yet, so I must be doing something right in that space.
You mentioned that sometimes people don't like pictures.
Yes.
So how come they come to the photo shoot?
Oh, look, some people just, this is another thing I've come to realize in this space. People find photography very confronting. It's a confronting thing to sit behind, I'm behind the camera, they're in front of the camera, and have your photo taken. And yeah, I mean, they want to have the memories. They want to have it. They want it there, and they want to look back and think, oh, I remember this time or whatever it was. Particularly when they've got young kids and they want to have memories of them as a family with the little youngsters. But yeah, you got to kind of just make them feel comfortable, right? And make them realize that they are their family's treasure. You know what I mean? And it's not until a lot of mums in particular that I'll photograph, they'll look back on the photos and, the joy they see in these photos of their kids, the way that they look at them, the way that they hug them, the way that they kiss them. And then they realize, this is okay. And it's only until that moment kind of happens where they build that confidence, a little bit more confidence, I should say, and they're quite comfortable in their skin and who they are. But I've had quite a few clients in the past who they just don't feel comfortable. It's not something, that doesn't come natural to someone to pose, for a family photo or whatever it is. So that's why I think I've also pushed into sort of that lifestyle space, because you want to highlight people in their element. You want to highlight people in their own environments being themselves. So that's kind of where I think I make that process a bit more comfortable for people and for clients.
So what do you just see or feel like, okay, this person is super stressed out, or it's just
I'm a big talker. I will talk your ear off in a session because I feel like it almost what's the word? It just makes them feel more comfortable, I think. I don't know. I think people aren't comfortable with silence, right? So if I go in there and I'm all quiet and, they're all quiet and I'm all quiet and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable, whereas if you go in there like an open book and, it doesn't take much, asking basic questions. How are you? What do you do for a living? How old are your kids? Where do you live? Oh, okay, what do you like to do in your spare time? Oh, what does your hubby do? And then even just connecting with the kids on a basic level, like, oh, what's your favourite TV show? Oh, Peppa Pig, Bluey, or whatever it is. It's a very simple way to build a connection with someone. And before you know it, they're pretty comfortable. They're opening up. You're going for a walk along the beach or wherever it is that you might be. And, yeah, I think just you've got to be personable with them and you've got to be able to, see when they're stressed. And I've certainly had clients with young kids who are not willing to sit still, who are not willing to smile, who are just like hiding behind their parents, and just being able to reassure them that it's okay. Like I've had kids screaming their heads off for the entire session, but their gallery comes back and you wouldn't think that it was, quite a stressful experience. And I think it stresses the parents out more than it stresses me out because I know how to manage it and how to work around it. Whereas the parents like, oh my God, my kid's not, they won't not sitting still or they're doing this or doing that. And like, it's okay. Let them be them. Yeah, they're kids. Let them be them and let you do you. Let them be them and pretend I'm not here, you know what I mean? So I think once you've built that connection and you're able to resonate with them in some way, shape or form, the rest is, and it's that instant first 5 minutes of a session.
Was it something like that you had from the beginning or you kind of needed to find out what's your way, your style of approaching those kind of photo shoots?
Yeah, I think it's just me. I think it's just my personality, to be honest. It's not something that I kind of, you got to navigate certain people a certain way, I guess, to a certain extent. But I think for me, it's just natural for me to walk into a room or, meet a family for the first time and go, oh, hey, how are you? I'm Tina. I'm this, I'm that, and you got to make them feel comfortable with who you are. So, and, at the end of the day, you're getting quite close with them as well. I'm often like touching people's faces and just put your head here and just put your hand here. And so I'm constantly, I'm just going to tuck your hair behind your ear and things like that. So you want them to feel as comfortable as possible with you, I guess, and then you're grabbing their kids and you're, trying to place them in a certain way. So it's just, I think for me, it's come natural. And I think being a mum and having my own 2 kids, I get it. My 2 are a handful at the best of times. So, you just got to figure out how to navigate it in that space and then off you go.
Your favorite sessions?
Oh, favorite sessions. I do love a good family session. I did one, I think it was last weekend. It was a maternity/family session and they were a dream to work with. She turned up in this beautiful dress that she had bought. Half the top of it was all sequins and now I'm obsessed with sequins. I'm like, I need to find some sequin dresses for my client wardrobe. And she was a joy, you know what I mean? Like, I think it just depends on what their expectations are and then you just sort of trying to meet that. And I think in the lead up to the session anyway, you're having those conversations and figuring out how you're going to best approach it anyway. But, yeah, other than that, just anything that's sort of creative. I love anything that's, a client who's willing to let me do anything. That's awesome. And sometimes they surprise me. I'll turn up and I'll meet someone who I initially thought was going to be a bit reserved. And before I know it, they're like, particularly if they're pregnant, they're, in lingerie with a beautiful gown and they're rubbing their bellies and they're going nuts. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I love this. So, yeah, it just kind of depends. Straight away, as soon as you meet them, you kind of figure it out.
So you're working as well right now, you said, about that you're working on your home studio.
Yes.
And is there anything else that we can expect from you in the future? Anything exciting? What are your dream projects perhaps?
Mainly, if I can have an actual studio in a commercial space, that would be great. But for now, it's small steps. It's a home studio, see what happens in that space. And by the time I get a bit more consistency in terms of how many clients I'm kind of bringing through the doors every week, then I'll probably look to sort of hire out an actual space or a mobile space. I don't know. We'll just see sort of what happens. But, yeah, definitely the home studio is on the cards and then we'll take it from there. So hopefully come spring, this will all look very different in here.
Fingers crossed for that. And then we can see on your Instagram, I do believe, on your website that you open.
I'll need some free models actually when I've got this set up. So watch this space.
I've got last two questions. What inspired you recently? Any books, movies, podcasts, TV shows?
Podcasts. I'm a huge fan of a good podcast, but for me, I'm kind of in that mental health /wellness /resilience space at the moment. So I love anything that's going to sort of boost my confidence in that space. I'm listening to a lot of, what's it called? The Imperfects, which is by the Resilience Project. So there's a few of them, and that they interview sort of celebrities on, their experiences to fame and, their own challenges. And it's kind of just made me realize how human everybody really is, regardless of what it might look like on the outside. So I think that's been a big one for me. The other thing that I really love at the moment is good old Chris Hemsworth, my favourite actor in the world. He did a documentary called Limitless, which is about longevity. And there's a doctor that he works with on that sort of series called Peter Attia, I think his name is. Anyway, he has a book called Outlive. I'm yet to read it. It's literally by my bed. I'm waiting to try and find the time to read it. But it's all about just, again, sort of resilience, longevity, wellness, and how you can sort of get the best out of your life, really. So they're the kind of things that I'm looking at the moment. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. I'm just all about the wellness and resilience building, keeping your mental health where it needs to be and keeping that in check and doing what resonates with you, I guess, speaking your own truth. So anything in that space is kind of what I love to sort of read or listen to in my spare time.
Love it. And I think that's also why you are 100% or 110% committed to what you do. That's really aligns with your values. So
that's correct.
That's beautiful.
It's the best way to live, to be honest. When you're working in a space that resonates with every part of your body and soul, it just changes your life, to be honest.
The very last one piece of advice. I know there was many that you mentioned today, which I feel like they're so important. But one piece of advice you would like to give to someone who wants to start their own business.
I think you just don't procrastinate. Just do it. Just start, because once you start, you'll see how things flow. And then, like I said, and I think I said this right at the beginning, set yourself some easy goals. Set yourself good time frames, realistic time frames, and then, just tick those boxes off. The sooner you start, the better it's going to be in the long run for you, I think. And it can be anything. And I think the one thing I've realized now, also meeting so many people and finding out what they do for work, you can do anything. There is money in anything, so long as you love what you're doing and you're committed to it. That's probably, the take home. Start. And just, realize you can actually do it. It might take time. It's going to take time, actually. It's not going to happen overnight, and you've got to be prepared for those ebbs and flows. But, just start. That's my advice. Give it a go. See what happens. It'll open doors, and enjoy the journey.
Wow, I've got shivers when you say it so. So thank you so much, Tina, and enjoy your journey. I mean, I can tell you do, even though you say obviously it's ups and downs, but I think you should give yourself a huge high five, a hug that you made it. And the commitment is something I admire. So really, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
And that's all for today's episode of What's Your Spark? Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on the platform you are listening to. And be sure to stay in touch with me. My Instagram handle is @honorata.yanas, or if you're gonna search Honoyanas, you're gonna find me there as well. Oh, and one more thing. If you know someone who would love this episode, please don't be shy and just share it with them. Until next time!